Hello, we are back for another FCA video. We are talking about sharing your testimony today. Couldn't talk about a more important thing because testimonies do glorify God in so many different ways. My name is Clint Daniels. I'm the faculty sponsor for FCA at Indian Trail Middle School. Feel free to contact me at my email address there at the bottom of the screen right there, teachersdevotional@gmail.com, or if you would like to follow free teacher devotions, catch me on my blog right there, teacherdevotional.com. So what is a testimony? You may have heard that word if you're a new Christian, maybe you're a seeker, you may not understand it. A testimony is basically a story of how you came to Christ. It answers the question of how God is working in your life. All of us are unique and different. There's no testimony that's going to be the exact same as somebody else because we are all unique masterpieces of God. And that's the awesome thing about testimonies is you're going to be able to reach different people. My testimony might reach a different crowd than yours. And as long as we're all bold enough to share our stories on how we came to Christ, then you can reach out to a lot of different people. Therefore, all testimonies are important. You can be ordinary or it can be extravagant. The biggest lie you can believe is that, my testimony is not worth sharing. That's baloney. Every testimony is worth sharing. And you know what? Here I am. I'm 41 years old. I do realize this myself. God's still writing my story as He is still writing your story. So will your testimony change 5-10 years down the road? Yeah, it might. You might go through something in life where your story has changed for the better, for the worse. Life is a roller coaster. How's that for a metaphor? But testimonies, I love this picture right here. It says, "What has God done in your life?" Share your story with us. The glory goes to God, guys. This is not a way to puff yourself up. The glory goes straight back to God. So testimonies can be broken down into 3 easy steps here. This is typically how people share them. Step number 1 is to talk about your life before you accepted Christ. Okay. Number 2, you'll talk about how you accepted Christ. Maybe was there a pivotal event or just your baptism or whatever. And number 3, what is Christ doing in your life right now? Okay. My recommendation is that you write it out, on note cards. You can type it, write it on a sheet of paper, whatever it is, get it down on paper. Okay. Second of all, you got to practice it. Practice makes perfect. The best athletes out there don't get anywhere unless they actually put the practice into it. And you know what? This last thing right here, as you get deeper into practicing your testimony, you will realize that you need to have a little 2-minute testimony in your pocket. Maybe a quick story to share in like 2 minutes. I've even heard of people sharing their testimonies on an elevator for like a 30-second elevator ride. Could you fit your testimony into 30 seconds? That'd be like maybe 4 or 5 sentences. Or maybe you're sitting down with an old friend for lunch and you have a full hour with them. Maybe your testimony might take more time to share there. Different lengths, different situations. You should practice them all. Okay. And the redeemed of the Lord tell their story. I'm hoping you guys are inspired to do so after watching this video here. Let's go straight to a biblical example. I love the testimony of Paul. If you had to define his testimony in one word, it would definitely be extravagant. It's pretty intense. So if you go to the book of Acts in the Bible, you will see his testimony. So in detail, it's narrative in Acts chapter 8 through 9. It tells in detail what happened to Paul. But you'll see numerous times throughout the New Testament, Paul actually tells his story. He shares his testimony to other people to get them on board. To sum it up, basically, Paul started off as like the worst persecutor of Christians ever. He was the lowest of low. He would put people to death. Right before his conversion, there was a very famous Christian by the name of Stephen who was stoned to death. And who was the one who was behind that? It was Paul. Paul was the one who was ordering his execution, basically. So here's the story. He's walking down the road. Okay, Paul, this angry persecutor of Christians. He hated Christians. And all of a sudden, he is blinded by this amazing light that comes down. And Jesus, he speaks to him. He says, "Why are you persecuting me?" And Paul doesn't really have an answer. "Oh, I don't know." Well, guess what? He's blinded for 3 days. And this is the crazy part here. You go in without sight for 3 days. This is pretty intense. Well, this guy by the name of Ananias gives Paul his sight back and says, "Hey, man, it's all good. Your sight's back." And there is a change in Paul. He realizes that he needs to be on board. And immediately, people are starting to doubt this. They're thinking like, holy smokes, this guy, the worst persecutor of Christians, he is actually a Christian now? How did God do that? They didn't understand. And I tell you what, the people who were against Christians, they found Paul and they see Paul speaking out boldly about Christ. He faced immediate persecution. He was actually people tried to kill him. He's been through a lot, been through jail, but he became an amazing soldier for Christ. And I think that's an amazing testimony that's happened so long ago, but his testimony is so powerful today. And I don't know if it compares to you. Were you blinded for 3 days before you accepted Jesus in your heart? Probably not. But that's the story of Paul. I would love to share with you guys my testimony to practice it with you here. And here's the thing about my testimony. It's pretty raw, and I'm going to give you guys the basic generic version. I think in time, as I mature, I will share more freely the finer details of what happened to me. But for right now, I think that God is calling me to give the generic version. I think that's still pretty good. So, hey, before Christ, where do you start here? Well, I tell you what, I grew up going to church on Sundays. I was indeed baptized when I was in 5th grade. However, that was not really my choice. It was something that my parents' church did, and there was nothing against that. I went through a pastor's class, and all my friends got baptized on the same day. There's probably 25 or 30 of us, and I took my first communion. But I tell you what, it wasn't really a game changer for me. I didn't know what I was doing. And as I grew into college, my dad gave me my first devotion, and I did a little 10-minute quiet time before the day started. And it was okay. I wasn't diving very deep into the Bible. I'd maybe read one verse or a verse of the day, read a little sweet devotion, and move about my day. I would call myself a lukewarm Christian, which means that you're not all in. You're kind of taking parts of the Bible that you like, and you're leaving other parts out. The more difficult parts, I definitely left to the side there. People would probably call me a good guy, but if you looked on the outside, but on the inside of me, I was facing some serious struggles on the inside there, and had the lukewarm Christian. My temperature was not very hot. It was just enough to get me by, and it was kind of sad, to be honest with you. Well, accepting Christ was quite a process for me. I went through a quite serious depression from 2010 to 2012. I felt like a failure in so many areas of my life. And it's interesting because it started at the top, where I thought I was at the top, and it just slowly spiraled out of control. I started experiencing lower back pain, and when I was 6-7 years ago, I really thought that exercise was my escape from life. and I suddenly found myself not able to exercise and not able to get that stress out of my life. I began to struggle in fatherhood. My boys started being born. My son was born in 2010, and I had another one born in 2011. That was not really planned. They were 13 months apart, and I felt like a failure as a father. I had two little babies in my house, and I just didn't know what I was doing. I truly thought God was giving me more than I could handle. My marriage started crumbling. It was rough between my wife and I. We were definitely tag teaming it together, but it was not well. And I'll have to admit, work was extremely rough that year. For me, I wasn't in. I was depressed, and you could just see it and feel it. I was spiraling into nothing. But I was indeed hospitalized on a pivotal day in my life. Was May 7th, 2012. Hospitalized that day, and you know what? I took a long extended break into the summer, and I found Jesus that summer. I submitted to him, and that was how I accepted Christ. And it wasn't a single day that it happened. It was more of a long, cathartic process, a gradual sanctification that drew me into his love. My testimony, Christ in me, this is the awesome part of my testimony. I submitted to Christ. There was immediate healing. I was indeed baptized on February 9th, 2013. There's the picture right there. That's me. There's my pastor baptizing me in front of my close friends and family. My quiet time at that point just took off. Instead of that little 10-minute segment in the beginning of the day, I was doing 30 minutes to an hour and a half, maybe even 2 hours in the morning before I went off to work. And I started accountability groups and Bible studies. I even started my own teacher prayer group in my building. Then the unthinkable happened. I began writing on a blog called theteachersdevotional.com and became the sponsor for FCA since the fall of 2014. And I tell you what, God is not through with me yet. He's still doing amazing things through me in my new life. And guys, it's been 5 years almost, since my struggles, and I a totally changed person. Loved every second of my new life. So final thoughts. Hey, what is God doing in you? Is he doing something amazing? Who needs to hear your story? There's lots of different people out there that can benefit from hearing testimonies. How will you share it with them? It's going to be up to you and how you do that. And I tell you what, guys, I put the soccer ball off to the side here. Could have put any type of ball, but guess what? The ball's in your court. You go for it. You take your testimony, you share it, and you be proud of it. Because it's the story of how you came to Christ, and you know what? I think that's a story that's certainly worthy of being shared. A good friend of mine who goes to my church, he kind of smiled and said, my testimony is not as extravagant as yours. And he said he thought that was Satan's way of telling him that he shouldn't share his testimony because he never thought that he really should share, because he's led a fairly good life, good wife, 3 kids, good marriage. And he kind of laughed and said, you know what? I think that stories like that where you're raised in a Christian home are just as powerful because it shows what God can do to a family that's already on board. And I said, amen, Michael, amen. Well, hey, I hope you enjoyed hearing my testimony today. Here's my question for you. What are you going to do with your testimony? Are you going to share it with somebody on your sports team maybe? Are you going to share it with maybe a kid in your class at school? I don't know who God's calling you to talk to, but I will be praying that you are bold enough to go out and do it. Practice it. Get it polished to perfection, and go out and dominate, guys. Have a blessed day. Thank you so much for listening to me here on YouTube.